Tariffs aren't just hitting supply chains, they're squeezing digital marketing budgets too. So how do you adapt? This episode of Undumb Marketing uncovers how brands like Apple, Ford, and Nike are staying ahead, and how you can do the same. Learn 5 game-changing strategies like optimizing ad spend and leveraging influencer marketing to stay ahead without blowing your budget. We'll reveal the must-know tactics to keep your marketing on track. Let's begin.
Hey everyone, and welcome back. We're diving into something that's probably been on your mind if you're in marketing or running a business. Tariffs.
Yeah.
We're going to break down this piece called Digital Marketing Budgeting, Tariffs and Pivots.
Okay.
And see just how they're shaking things up in the digital marketing world.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting. We often hear about tariffs in the news, but the conversation usually revolves around economics. What people don't always realize is how these tariffs create a ripple effect.
Right.
And impact things like marketing budgets in ways you might not expect.
Yeah, and that's why we're doing this deep dive, right?
Exactly.
It's one thing to know tariffs exist,
Right.
but it's another to understand how they're messing with your marketing plans.
Yeah.
And more importantly, what you can actually do about it.
Think of it this way. Tariffs are essentially taxes on imported goods. Now, when a business has to shell out more money for those goods because of tariffs,
Yeah.
guess what? Those costs eventually trickle down, impacting everyone, including the consumer.
Okay, I'm seeing how this chain reaction starts to play out. But how are tariffs actually hitting our marketing budgets?
So the source we're looking at breaks it down into 5 key impacts.
Okay.
First, we've got the most straightforward one, increased product costs. Let's say you're importing a key component for your product. Suddenly tariffs come in and bam, your costs go up.
Right.
That means to maintain your profit margin, you might have to increase prices,
Yeah.
which impacts sales.
Right, and that leads us to the second impact, right?
Exactly.
Higher advertising costs. I'm guessing this is where things get a little more complicated.
Absolutely. The article explains that these increased product costs due to tariffs can actually trickle down to digital advertising. Here's a real-world example. The article also talks about how steel tariffs affected Ford.
Okay.
When the price of steel went up, Ford's production costs increased, and they ended up having to spend more on advertising to maintain sales.
Wow, so even if you're not directly importing goods,
Right.
you could still get hit by these ripple effects. That's a bit unsettling. Is that what happened with Apple and the tariffs on iPhone?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Apple had to get creative. They started sourcing components from other countries not affected by those specific tariffs.
Right.
It's a good illustration of how diversifying your supply chain can be a lifesaver.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. But what about smaller businesses that might not have the same resources as a giant like Apple? What can they do?
It's all about being proactive and adaptable. One thing businesses can do is really analyze their supply chain. Are they relying too heavily on one source? If so, can they explore alternative options?
Yeah.
Maybe even look at domestic suppliers.
That seems like a good first step. Now, the source also talks about how tariffs affect consumer behavior, right? What's
Right.
going on there?
Right. The third impact is all about how consumers react to price increases caused by tariffs. The article points to Walmart as a prime example. They noticed a big shift in how their customers shopped when prices went up due to tariffs. Some folks started buying cheaper brands, while others simply bought less.
So it sounds like businesses need to be really tuned in to how their target audience is responding to these price changes.
For sure.
I mean, what's the point of running a marketing campaign if it's not resonating with consumers anymore?
Exactly. And that's where things like market research and data analysis become super important. You've got to constantly be gathering information about your audience
Yeah.
and adjusting your messaging accordingly. Are their priorities shifting? Are they looking for more value-driven options? You need to understand these nuances.
That makes a lot of sense. Now, the fourth impact the source highlights is supply chain delays.
Right.
How are tariffs playing into that?
Well, tariffs can disrupt the smooth flow of goods across borders, which can lead to delays in production and shipping.
Yeah.
The article gives the example of Nike, a company that relies on a complex global supply chain. They've had to adapt quickly to stay ahead of these delays, which isn't always easy.
Right. It's like you've planned this amazing marketing campaign and suddenly your products are stuck in customs. What can businesses do to mitigate these disruptions?
There are a couple of key strategies. First, Consider building up your inventory of popular items.
Okay.
It's like creating a safety net so you're not caught empty-handed if there are delays.
Okay, that's smart. It's like having a backup plan, right?
Exactly.
Mm.
And second, don't be afraid to be flexible with your marketing campaigns. Maybe you need to push back a launch date or adjust your messaging to account for potential delays. The key is to have a plan B and be ready to pivot.
Transparency is also crucial. Clearly.
Absolutely.
If you know there are going to be delays, don't keep your customers in the dark.
Absolutely. Open communication builds trust, and it shows your customers that you're on top of things.
Now, the fifth and final impact mentioned is rebudgeting challenges.
Right.
This one sounds like a real headache.
It can be. Essentially, tariffs can force businesses to constantly reassess their budgets, which can be tough, especially for smaller businesses.
Right.
The article uses Google as an example.
Okay.
Even a company with Google's vast resources have had to reallocate budgets to cope with fluctuating costs, particularly in digital advertising.
So if Google's feeling the pressure, you know it's a real issue for everyone else. What's the best way to handle these rebudgeting challenges?
The data emphasizes the importance of agility. You've got to be able to adapt to changing market conditions. And that often means making tough decisions about where to allocate your resources.
So it's not just about having a budget. It's about having a flexible budget that you can adjust on the fly.
Exactly. And that's where data comes in. Investing in robust analytics tools can give you real-time insights into your campaign performance. This data allows you to see what's working, what's not, and make data-driven decisions about where to allocate your budget for the greatest impact.
It's all about being strategic and making every dollar count, especially when tariffs are throwing a wrench into the works.
Right. And don't forget about your team. They need to be equipped to handle these challenges. Invest in training, encourage open communication,
Right.
and foster a culture of adaptability.
All right, so we've covered the 5 key ways tariffs are impacting your digital marketing budget. Don't worry, we're not just going to leave you with a bunch of problems and no solutions. In part 2, we're going to explore some practical strategies that can help you navigate this tricky terrain. Stay tuned.
Sounds good.
All right, so we talked about the challenges now. Let's dive into some solutions. The 3 key areas where you can make some strategic moves.
Okay.
Influencer marketing, organic marketing, and adapting your marketing timelines.
And you know what's fascinating about these solutions is they're not just about surviving in a tariff-heavy environment.
Right.
They're about thriving.
Yeah.
Tariffs are forcing businesses to get creative, to find new ways to connect with customers, and to really optimize their strategies.
I like that perspective.
Yeah.
So let's start with influencer marketing. We hear about it all the time these days, but why is it particularly relevant in a world where tariffs are squeezing budgets?
Well, think about it. Tariffs are driving up costs, which means you might have less to spend on traditional advertising. Influencer marketing can be a much more cost-effective way to reach your target audience, especially when you're looking for a high return on investment.
The source actually points out that influencer marketing can yield 11 times higher ROI than traditional digital marketing. That's a pretty compelling statistic.
It is.
But how do you go about finding the right influencers
Right.
and making sure those campaigns are actually working?
That's where strategy comes in. The article recommends starting by identifying influencers whose audience aligns with your target market. Think about where your ideal customer spends their time online. Are they on Instagram, YouTube, TikTok?
Right, so it's not just about finding someone with a huge following. It's about finding someone whose audience is actually interested in what you have to offer.
Exactly. And once you've identified potential influencers, you need to approach them with a clear value proposition. Don't just think of it as a transaction where you're paying for a shout-out. Instead, focus on building a genuine partnership.
So it's about offering something unique and valuable to the influencer, right?
Yes.
Maybe it's early access to a new product or the opportunity to collaborate on content creation.
Exactly. Make them feel like they're a part of your brand story. And of course, you need to track the performance of your campaigns. Tools like Sprout Social can help you measure engagement, reach, and ultimately that all-important ROI.
Okay, influencer marketing check. Now let's move on to organic marketing.
Right.
The source describes it as budget-friendly and sustainable. What exactly does that mean?
So organic marketing is all about building a strong online presence through creating valuable content and optimizing it for search engines. It's about attracting customers to you naturally rather than relying solely on paid advertising.
So it's like building a solid foundation for your brand that can weather any storm,
Yes.
including those tariff-induced storms.
Exactly. It's a long-term strategy that takes time and effort, but the rewards can be huge, especially when you're facing budget constraints.
The source actually outlines a roadmap for getting started with organic marketing. It emphasizes creating high-quality content that provides value to your target audience.
Right, and that content could take many forms. Blog posts, articles, videos, infographics, it all depends on your audience and what resonates with them. The key is to be consistent.
So don't just create one amazing blog post and then disappear.
Right.
You need to keep your audience engaged with regular updates and fresh perspectives.
Exactly. And to make sure your content gets seen by the right people, you need to optimize it for search engines. The piece mentions Ahrefs as a helpful tool for keyword research and SEO analysis.
Yeah, RFs can be really powerful for understanding what people are searching for online and making sure your content shows up in those search results.
Right, and the higher you rank in those search results, the more likely people are to find your website or your content organically
Right.
without you having to pay for every click.
Okay, so we've covered influencer marketing and organic marketing. Now, the third solution is adapting your marketing timelines. What's the thinking behind that?
Well, remember how we talked about tariffs causing those pesky supply chain delays?
Right.
This solution is all about being proactive and building flexibility into your marketing plans.
So instead of freaking out when a shipment gets delayed, you have a plan in place to adjust your marketing accordingly.
Exactly. The source recommends building in some buffer time for your campaigns.
Yeah.
It's like adding a cushion to your schedule,
Right.
so you're not caught off guard if things don't go exactly according to plan.
That makes a lot of sense. It's better to have that extra time and not need it than to be scrambling at the last minute.
And also emphasizes the importance of transparency. If there are going to be delays, communicate that to your customers. Honesty and open communication go a long way in building trust.
For sure. It shows that you respect your customers and that you're on top of things. The source also suggests using project management tools like Trello or Asana to stay organized and keep track of deadlines.
Yeah, those tools can be lifesavers when you're dealing with multiple projects and constantly shifting timelines. They help you stay on top of everything and make sure nothing falls through the cracks.
Okay, so we've got three key solutions: mastering influencer marketing, amping up your organic marketing efforts, and adapting your marketing timelines to be more flexible. These are all practical steps that any business can take to mitigate the impact of tariffs on their marketing budget. But wait, there's more. In part 3, we're going to tackle some common questions about tariffs and their impact on digital marketing. We'll be diving into the FAQ section, which has some really helpful insights. Stay tuned. Okay, so we've covered influencer and organic marketing and adapting timelines. We've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive, but I'm sure there are still some questions.
Yeah, FAQs are great.
Exactly. So the first question is one that I'm sure a lot of businesses are asking themselves: how exactly are tariffs affecting my digital marketing budget?
It's a valid question.
Mm-hmm.
And as we've discussed, it all boils down to the ripple effect. Tariffs increase the cost of importing goods, which leads to higher production costs for businesses. Those increased costs have to be absorbed somewhere, and often that means cutting back on other expenses, including marketing.
So even if you're not directly importing goods, those tariffs can still come back to bite you by shrinking your marketing budget.
Precisely. And that's why it's so important to understand the bigger picture and be proactive in adapting your strategies.
Now, the next question gets to the heart of what we've been talking about. What strategies can I implement to lessen the impact of tariffs?
Well, the article highlights the 3 key strategies we've already discussed: influencer marketing, organic marketing, and adapting your marketing timelines. What's interesting is that these strategies aren't just band-aids for a temporary problem. They're actually smart approaches that can benefit your business in the long run, regardless of tariffs.
I like that. It's like turning a challenge into an opportunity to strengthen your overall marketing approach.
Exactly. It's about becoming more efficient, more strategic, and more adaptable.
The final question in the FAQ section asks, are there any real-life examples of brands successfully pivoting in response to tariffs?
Oh, absolutely. We've already talked about Apple diversifying its supply chain and Ford shifting its focus to influencer marketing, but there are countless other examples. Some companies have found success by switching to local suppliers, while others have doubled down on digital strategies to reduce costs.
It's inspiring to see how businesses are finding creative ways to navigate these challenges.
It really highlights the importance of agility and innovation.
And speaking of innovation, there's one more point that I think is worth revisiting.
Okay.
It's about the potential of influencer marketing.
You mean that statistic about influencer marketing generating 11 times higher ROI than traditional digital marketing?
That's the one. Why is this particularly important in the context of tariffs?
Because, as we've discussed, tariffs can force businesses to be more mindful of their budgets. Finding cost-effective strategies that deliver a high return on investment becomes even more critical.
And influencer marketing, when done right, seems to be one of those strategies.
It's a powerful tool, that's
Mhm.
for sure. It allows you to tap into an engaged audience, build brand awareness, and drive sales, all in a way that can be much more cost-effective than traditional advertising.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into tariffs and digital marketing, what are some of the key takeaways for our listeners?
I think the biggest takeaway is that tariffs are a reality of the global marketplace, and their impact on digital marketing is undeniable.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean you're powerless. There are strategies you can implement to mitigate these impacts and even turn challenges into opportunities.
It's about being proactive, being adaptable, and being willing to experiment.
Exactly. And don't forget about the power of data. Use data to track your campaigns, measure your ROI, and make informed decisions about where to allocate your resources.
That's a great point. And remember, knowledge is power. By staying informed about how tariffs are affecting the business landscape and the digital marketing world, you can make strategic decisions that will help your business not just survive, but thrive.
Well said. And never underestimate the importance of staying curious and continuously learning. The world of digital marketing is always evolving, and those who are willing to adapt and embrace new ideas will be the ones who succeed.
That's a perfect note to end on. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into tariffs and digital marketing. Until next time.
That's a wrap for this episode of Undumb Marketing. If you liked what you heard, don't stop here. Check out our other episodes for more straight takes on today's hottest marketing topics. New episodes dropping weekly, so hit follow and stay ahead of the game. Got a question or topic you want us to tackle? Find us online and let's keep the conversation going. See you next time.